Hello, good evening. I'm Richard. Welcome back to my channel over and over again, the Arsenal podcast. This is a very special show. It's the opposition view, looking ahead to tomorrow night's big game in the Premier League, as you can see on the screen there, Arsenal versus Aston Villa. I was supposed to be getting a different Aston Villa fan with me tonight. Unfortunately, he's been taken ill. But we have got a fantastic last-minute replacement who we'll introduce into the channel very, very shortly. Just before we get started, if you are new to the channel and you do like the look of what we do, please consider subscribing and also as well give this show a like if you enjoy it as well, and share the content around. And don't forget, you can drop your comments in the chat box. I will put them on the screen. We can talk about your points as well. If you've got any questions for our guest about or anything else to do with Arsenal or Aston Villa, please drop them in the box. Feel free to join in with the show as well. So yeah, this is going to be the Arsenal versus Aston Villa opposition view coming up the other side of this. So let's get going. So we'll bring our guest in. He's an Aston Villa fan, obviously. Special guest, new to the channel. It is Simon, otherwise known as Froggy. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all good, Rich. Yourself?
Yeah, very good, very good. Obviously, as we just sort of spoke off air, we both had disappointing results this week coming into this game, disappointing performances, which we will get onto a little bit later. But obviously, thanks for stepping in. I know it was a short notice call in the end. I did have, unfortunately, the original guest had to pull out due to illness. But so thanks very much for coming on.
No worries. No worries.
Brilliant. I mean, obviously, you are new to the channel, so just really give everybody maybe a little insight into yourself, why Aston Villa, how that came about, how long you've been a supporter, that kind of stuff.
Oh God, I've been a Villa supporter all my life. I was, like most people, integrated into the club through my father. I mean, there is only really one side to follow in the Midlands. There isn't a great deal of choice. There's only one club with any sort of history, pedigree, and class, and that clearly is Aston Villa.
I thought you were going to say Leicester then. Sorry.
No, no. There's not many options. You've got Birmingham City 0, West Bromwich Albion. We won't talk about the lot that had their 10 minutes of fame on Saturday against us, because they'll be crowing on that for the last 25 years. So now I've been a Villa fan all of my life. I go to sit in the upper tier of the Holt End, sit next to my son, who goes home and away. He's actually going to Arsenal for the third year running tomorrow. So like most people, just sort of fall into it and have followed them mostly home and away for, a good 30, 35 years.
Oh, fantastic. So you've got a good history. You must have a lot of memories, obviously, of Arsenal Aston Villa games. It's been a big fixture out English football history, actually, hasn't it? You know,
yeah.
In fact, 197 times we've met over the years in all competitions. I mean, I don't suppose you remember all of them. I probably remember, I don't know, 50 or 60 of them maybe in more recent years. But no, it's always been a big game in the football calendar, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I've some really memorable ones going back to a Boxing Day game where Arsenal were 2-up and we had Santa Claus flying from the roof.
Yeah, I was at that game.
Hit the ceiling. I mean, the poor guy who was involved in that actually ended up losing both of his legs.
Yeah, that's right.
And we, by some miracle, managed to come back and go from losing 2-0 to winning 3-2, which still brings back bad memories, obviously, from the weekend. All the way through to the FA Cup final many years ago, where I think we came third in that game. It just wasn't anywhere near. I think our cup final was beating Liverpool, and there's just no way we were going to perform like that twice in a season. But it's always been a fixture I've looked forward to going to. Watching Arsenal, always wanting to play football the right way. The fans are good as gold, never have any problems. Bit of banter, you can have a pint with them in the bars afterwards. And not all of the clubs are from London are like that.
No, exactly. I mean, to be honest, I've always enjoyed trips to Villa Park. I think it's one of the great stadiums in the Premier League still. You know, I know it's had a lot of changes over the years. I can remember it back in the 80s when I first went, and obviously it's a lot different now, but it's still one of the original stadiums. I love the stand, you know, the main stand, the outside of that going up the steps and that is just it's iconic in English football actually, and it is a great place to go. And yeah, I mean, it's great that obviously now, last couple of years, Aston Villa back where they belong, I believe, in the Premier League, and obviously you're doing pretty well overall. Like, I mean, sort of, I really want to start on sort of this season, really. I mean, obviously a little bit of a change at the club with Jack Grealish got off.
Yeah.
That money's been invested in a few other players. I mean, what have you made? You've been a little bit inconsistent, haven't you? Sort of up and down performances, maybe. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I mean, obviously losing Jack was a big change for us, because our plan A was get the ball to Jack and plan B was see play out plan A. And yeah. I mean, it was massively frustrating in the summer watching the England games, thinking if only England had a guy on the pitch that could keep the ball, could get fouls, particularly in the final against Italy when we couldn't hold possession up.
Yeah.
And sorry if I'm going to upset the apple cart here, but I don't think there is really that much of a close measurement between Saka and Grealish. I think Grealish he's at a different level at this moment in time. As much as I like Saka, I think he's a fantastic footballer, but Grealish has held us and held us together for 3 or 4 years almost single-handedly. I mean, we would have definitely gone down had it not have been for him. And the transition from losing him to bringing in new players has also meant that we've had to change shape and change style. One of the guys that may start tomorrow, Leon Bailey, he is an absolute rocket. He's like pace-wise like Traore, but just has skill as well. But he's been out injured, didn't get a pre-season. Brought Danny Ings in, which meant we've gone 2 up top as opposed to just having Ollie Watkins up front. And Buendia has come in and started nicely and looks a nice footballer, but has been away with Argentina. I know we'll have that sort of COVID nonsense. So it's been a really mixed start with us, having a load of injuries, changing system, new players integrating into the side. And there's just been a couple of games we should have won. And had we won on Saturday, I think would have ended up being 7th. And you think, well, this part of the season, if we're 7th, I'd have taken that at the start of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is like you said. I agree. It seems obviously when you've got a lot of new players coming in and a slightly different system, it takes a little time to maybe adapt. Like you said, Jack Grealish was such a big player in your team. And, I kind of agree what you said about the England situation. I mean, I was surprised he didn't get more time on the pitch during the Euros, actually. Although I thought that the game, I think it was Czech Republic, was it, when it was Saka and Grealish both played. And that was a good performance from England. So I think they maybe could have both been in the team, possibly.
It's interesting now. He's gone to Manchester City, a perceived big club. And he starts every game. And the final for me was just criminal and shows, which is probably a different subject, shows Southgate's complete naivety. We dominated the game for 30 minutes. The Italian manager saw that they wasn't getting the ball. They changed the system. They made substitutions, made an impact on the game. Southgate just stood there, and as soon as they scored and got back to 1-1, then he made a change. But to bring Grealish on with sort of 15 minutes to go was just crazy, absolutely crazy. And I would say if when he played for Man City now, when he got took off the other night, I think why? I just don't understand that. He would play for me all day long.
Yeah, I mean, it was strange that he didn't maybe play a little bit more in the Euros, and I'm sure if he had joined Man City before the Euros, he may well have played them more often, which is strange because he's the same player. He's just crazy. But I agree, since he's moved there, he seems to be playing a lot more minutes, which kind of sums up the England situation for me. Really, if you're at one of the so-called big clubs, you're going to get picked regardless of players that are playing for maybe smaller club or lesser clubs, if you like, not smaller clubs in Villa's case because they're a big club, but smaller in terms of the top 6. Then it's not going to get as many minutes. And it's maybe needs to be looked at. But as you say, that's maybe a different story. But I totally agree with you. And I agree. I think Jack Grealish is a brilliant player, and I'm sure he's already settled in pretty well at Man City, and I'm sure he'll do well in his career going forward. And
Absolutely.
obviously your loss is definitely their gain, and possibly England's as well, because I'm sure he'll play more. Nigel's in the chat. He says Villa tried to replace Grealish with Emil Smith-Rowe. Cheeky. I don't know how serious that was. I mean, in the end, you got Buendia, I suppose, instead of ESR. But I don't think we would have sold him. But I mean, I don't know how serious that kind of story was back in the summer.
I think they had a little nibble around Smith Rowe, and Ward-Prowse. So I don't know if it was like a double-barreled name thing that they were trying to get after at that period of time, but he's a similar type of player to Grealish, and maybe they just thought he would come in and play and start regularly for Villa, but he's done that for Arsenal, hasn't he? So the money we were talking about, really, you're just not going to get people for 20-25 million pounds at that age. No. I mean, that would have been absolute robbery if we'd have done that. But yeah, it would have been nice to have got him, but why would you leave Arsenal if you're going to start?
Yeah, I mean, why not put a bid in? You had the money at the end of the day, I suppose, when you just got 100 million for Jack. But yeah, I mean, I think he seems happy now. He is playing every week, and there doesn't seem to be, in terms of the league table, there doesn't seem to be an awful lot at the moment separating Arsenal and Villa. Is there 1 point in actual fact, which is a point now?
Yeah, it's. I don't think there's a lot between the two teams. I really don't think there's a lot between the two teams. I know we're going to come on to predictions later, but I think there's an argument it could go. It wouldn't surprise me any three of the potential results tomorrow. It really wouldn't, because we are a little bit hit and miss. If Bailey plays for 60 minutes and plays anywhere near like we saw him play against Everton, I think will be difficult to stop. He looks that good. He really does. And we've only seen him for 27 minutes, but the game against Everton, he came on a sub and he got man of the match, and he scored one, set one up, and he absolutely ripped Everton to pieces.
No, he did. Yeah, I mean, he made a big impression in that game, and if that's what he's capable of doing, then I'm sure he's going to be an exciting player to watch, isn't he? And from our point of view, I guess maybe I'm hoping he perhaps isn't fit for Friday, because whether our defence will be able to deal with that sort of pace, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
obviously we can come on to maybe the team lineups a bit later. I mean, you've actually got a good record against Arsenal. You've won the last 3 games. We've not even scored, and of course, last season this fixture was obviously that 3-0 victory. And you've actually got a decent record at the Emirates as well. We've only won 6 out of the 12 games, so we've only won 50% of the games you played at the Emirates. So that's a decent record. Better than most teams have got, maybe except for Man United and Chelsea possibly. You've probably got the best record at the Emirates.
Yeah, and it's odd really, because as I was growing up as a young lad, and particularly perhaps my mid sort of 30s going to watch them, I was always happy to get a draw against Arsenal. But we have, for whatever reason, just got results, and sometimes that happens, doesn't it? The side you can play against, you just beat them, and you just do well, and hopefully that carries on tomorrow. I think we got you at the right time last year, didn't we? In the game at your place, I think we had Barkley flying, Grealish flying, Watkins flying. We were full of confidence, and you guys were the complete opposite. You had, I think, Aubameyang was in and out of the team, and you had some injuries, and I just think it all kind of went right for us that particular day. We played really well, as it happened, and you guys didn't. And that's sometimes the way that it goes, doesn't it, in our great game?
Yeah, it can do. Yeah, I mean, that was that last season's game was the game that really started us on a really poor run. Actually, we couldn't score goals. We were poor at home. We were losing games, and it went all the way till Christmas till we managed to sort of turn it around. And of course, in fact, we've played you 3 times under Mikel Arteta, and we haven't even scored, which is a poor record that we need to put right at some point. In fact, we haven't scored against you guys since that 3-2 game at the Emirates a couple of years back, when we had Maitland-Niles sent off and you were winning. I think you was ahead twice in that game.
We had our favourite official in that game, didn't we? Who we've had. I think my son's quite a statistician with stuff like this, and I think we've had in 12 games. We've conceded 10 penalties and not got a point. And if I remember rightly, in that game, there was a blatant handball in the last minute from when Hourihane shot, and the central defender put his arm out, it hit his arm, and it should have been a penalty, and he didn't give it, which wasn't any great shock really. But you're 2-1 up away from home with 10 minutes to go against 10 men. You shouldn't lose. You could draw, but you shouldn't really lose it. But they are generally always good games. There's not normally a dull, boring game. But I think you can rest easy tonight. I think you'll score tomorrow. I think you'll score tomorrow.
Well, you say that. I mean, I did want to mention, obviously, your goalkeeper. Obviously, his career at Arsenal, where he only really started to play regularly for Arsenal the end of that season before he left. and he, when Bernd Leno was injured, and obviously he played really well for us. And a lot of Arsenal fans felt he should have been the number one choice, but he felt he wanted first team football. He's done well at Aston Villa, hasn't he, Martinez? I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Unbelievable. He's, other than another ex Arsenal keeper in Jimmy Rimmer, I've never seen a better goalkeeper at Villa Park. He's
really?
that good. He gives confidence. When a player goes through one-on-one, I expect him to save. I expect him to save it. He's obviously a big, tall guy. I'm probably set myself up for a massive fall tomorrow. He just generally doesn't make any rickets. He's got good hands, good distribution. He's very calm. I mean, when we got him, I thought, I'm not sure about that. So 20 million for a number 2 keeper, and I haven't really seen a lot of him. Honestly, he's been a steal. There's not many keepers that I would in the Premier League say, okay, I'll take him over Martinez. I don't think there's any. You could say Ederson's a great keeper, Alisson's a good keeper. Well, okay, well, let's put Martinez in Manchester City's goal when they have 85% possession, and let's put those guys a bit like the managers. Everyone keeps saying Pep Guardiola's a great manager. Go to Southampton or go to Newcastle without the money and show me how good you are there with some really average players. But he's just been just out of this world. We can't believe we've got him.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of Arsenal fans were upset that we sold him, and I think maybe last season we, Bernd Leno had a bit of a mixed season, if we're totally honest, and obviously now he's been replaced by Aaron Ramsdale, and I think that's been a good signing for Arsenal, and we've kind of put that to bed now. We've got a good goalkeeper, a young goalkeeper who looks like he's going to have a great career at Arsenal, and I think maybe people hopefully now will stop talking about it, or Arsenal fans will stop talking about Martinez now, because we've got a goalkeeper who, could be as good, possibly better. We'll see. He's still young and early in his Arsenal career, but he's doing very well at the moment. So, I mean, that's going to be an interesting... obviously, last season when he played at the Emirates, there was no fans in. So it'd be interesting to see what reception he gets, actually, with the fans in the stadium, because... I mean, I don't see any reason why he should get a bad reception, because he gave 10 years of his career to Arsenal, and it maybe didn't end in quite the best way, and he seems a bit bitter about it sometimes when you hear him speak. But I've certainly got nothing against him, and I hope that he gets a good reception tomorrow night.
I don't think he was screaming out to leave, was he? I think he just wanted to play first team football.
First team football, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll get a better reception that Campbell got at White Hart Lane.
Certainly will.
Slightly better reception there, but no, I would be disappointed for him if he got a bad reception. I wouldn't understand that. No,
he shouldn't do. But fans can be like, and I know a lot of Arsenal maybe feel a little bit. I don't know. I think they were just disappointed that he left. Really. Nigel says, I believe this was the first ever fixture at the Emirates. It was, Arsenal Aston Villa, the first ever Premier League game at the Emirates Stadium. We had 1-1 draw that day.
Yes.
Kind of set the tone, really, because we haven't beat you too many times since then either. So maybe, you got us.
I was at that game. Yeah, I was at that game. Olaf Melberg scored for Villa.
He did, yeah.
Arsenal scored with about 5 minutes to go, which seemed to be par for the course for us then. But we went down there thinking I'm just going to have a nice day in London, have a few beers, enjoy the stadium. And with 10 minutes to go, thinking, I can't believe this. We're going to beat Arsenal. This is unbelievable. This is, but no, it's a wonderful stadium. It's the only time I've been, but it's a wonderful stadium.
Yeah, it's maybe lacking a little. It needs a little bit of refurbishment maybe at the moment. I know they've just done the tunnel area and stuff like that, but I think the outside of the stadium's looking a little bit worn now. But I mean, I suppose it's been a long time, hasn't it? So I suppose it's not surprising. But no, I mean, it is a nice stadium. It's just I think it's just moving stadium is difficult. When you've had your home for so many years and you've had so many great moments there. I mean, I still miss Highbury now, and it's a shame that we had to leave. But I understand the reasons why we had to leave. It's just such a shame that we couldn't have maybe stayed there, because that's our traditional home. I suppose it'd be like if you left Villa Park, all those great memories and great moments there. It'd be hard. And, you're fortunate that you don't have to, because your stadium's got a big enough capacity. It's a great stadium. And you're lucky, I suppose, that you've managed to stay in your original home, which I think is quite important. We've lost our identity a little bit on the back of that, I think.
A little bit. But I think the one good thing with the Emirates is it's not like a lot of the new stadiums that are built, that they're all the same. Derby, Middlesbrough to Compton, they're exactly the same, just with different coloured seats in. But I used to love going to Highbury. You were close to the pitch. Every time I went, for whatever reason, I was always on the side where the away fans used to go. I was never on the halfway bit behind the goal. I was always on the side. And it was, just being able to be close to the pitch. You could almost smell the turf. It was a fabulous place to go and watch.
Yeah.
I never saw us win there, but in fact, my first ever away game was 1981 when we won the league, when we lost 2-0 there.
Fantastic.
My success of going to Highbury sort of followed on from that. In fact, I saw us get one draw there, and that was in the League Cup semi-final in '96 when you were 2-0 up, and we fought back to get 2-2, and then drew 0-0 at Villa Park and went through on away goals. But I've never seen us win there, and obviously never will now.
No, unfortunately, but I say you want to get back down to the Emirates because you do quite well down there, so you might see him win at the Emirates sooner or later. Because certainly, I say recently your record's been good there, so it just seems to be one of those games for us, as you said. Nigel says, "I love Emmy. I knew it would be a mistake to let him go in a similar way it was a mistake to let Giroud go to Chelsea. Madness from Arsenal. Yeah, I mean, I can understand why we let him go. He wasn't." He wanted to be number one, and he probably couldn't be guaranteed that at that point. And but I say now with Ramsdale, I think we can maybe draw a line under that episode and wish him well tomorrow. And wish. Well, I mean, I've wished him well since he left, and he's done brilliant. So he's enjoying himself, which is great. And it seems to have worked out well. We got decent enough money for him when he hadn't really played that many games, and he's having a good career now at Aston Villa and helping you guys improve, because obviously the first season that you were up, you just about survived thanks to us actually, because we let you beat us in your last home game, and then we beat Watford for you on the Saturday after, so we kind of kept you up, and the way you repay us is by beating us 3-0 at the Emirates last season. But these things happen. And Nigel says that Emirates buying the name rights to our stadium plays a big part in loss of identity. Yeah, I mean it does. I mean a lot of stadiums are sponsored now, aren't they? Unfortunately, but that's probably played a part in it. I just feel as though the whole heart and soul was ripped out of the club when we moved from Highbury. But there you go. We can't.
You wouldn't have called that. You couldn't have called that Highbury, could you? So you'd have to change the name anyway. Yeah. So if you're going to make a change, you might as well financially benefit from it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I don't think the name of the stadium is the big problem. I can understand, it probably plays a part in it, but Highbury Mark II or something like that would have been nice, maybe. But anyway, it never would be Highbury, so I suppose it's silly to call it that, I guess. But yeah, I mean, talking of Arsenal, I mean, what have you made? Have you watched much of Arsenal this season? What have you made of the way that we've been playing? Obviously, Monday night was really poor, but that kind of sums up how we've been, I believe. Pretty much most of the season.
A bit like us, really. A bit mixed. So early on in the season, I did think Arteta was probably getting to the stage where he's maybe 1 or 2 games potentially away from the sack. Your fixtures wasn't too kind right at the start of the season, so you played a lot of the bigger teams, but you just didn't seem to have. I mean, even under Wenger, you had, towards the latter part of his days, you had a way of playing. Oh, this is how Arsenal play. Yeah. And just as an outsider looking in, it didn't look as though you had a way of playing. It wasn't as if you're going to play a high press. It wasn't as if you're going to play lots of short passing in a possession game. You didn't really seem to have a way of playing. And you defensively. Have you ever been right since Adams and Bold and things such as that? It's always amazed me with Arsenal, the amount of money that has been spent on defenders, that you can go through and name them and think, really? Could you have got hold of some better players than that? I think White's good. I think White's steady. He's good on the ball. And hopefully that will be good for you throughout the season. I like the left back, Tierney. I think he's solid. It's a real shame that Bellerin's not playing tomorrow, especially with Bailey being back fit. I would like for him to have been around. But yeah, a little bit all over the place at some points during the season. But it looks as though over the last few weeks you've started to get it together a little bit. And it really surprised me watching you in the Palace game. I think a big change in that was, 2 incidents really. Saka going off and the Crystal Palace player staying on. I mean, whether he's been booked, whether or not he had been booked or not been booked before, that challenge alone was a red card for me. It was out of control. it's caused you to lose arguably your best or most creative player. And it's no coincidence the game changed. I didn't really think Palace were causing you any trouble, and then the game changes. So for me, that's red card. You go in 1-0 up at half time. All right, Saka has to come off, but you're playing against 10 men. Benteke always scores against Arsenal. I mean, that's just a given, isn't it? It's just like when Henry played against us. It's just put his name on the score sheet. He's always going to score against you. And then I think you just got sucked into Palace's way of playing, and turned out just a couple of silly mistakes really could have cost you the game. And you ended up getting an equaliser with the last kick of the game, which is probably what you deserved.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, we were overall fairly fortunate to get a point, really. I mean, when you score that late in the game, 4 minutes of stoppage time was given and we scored in the 95th minute. So, we were a little bit fortunate there. Yeah, I agree. It should have been a red card, definitely. And that would have changed the game, wouldn't it? Playing against 10 men when we was already 1-0 up. So, yeah, we'd never know now because obviously that didn't happen. But yeah, it was a disappointing performance. And, I thought we were fortunate to draw at Brighton a game before as well, when we got a 0-0 draw there. Yeah. We maybe hung on a little bit. Yeah, well, we sort of hung on a bit in that game. It wasn't a great performance, and we're unbeaten in 5, but we've only really played well against Tottenham, and we've scraped through the other games a little bit, really, which isn't maybe quite where I expected us to be at this point. I thought we would be playing better football, and we'd be maybe winning a few more games, and just looking as though we, I agree with what you said about the sort of lack of identity, really, what our style is. And I still don't think we've got one. No. We've now got a lot of new players in recently since the transfer window, players that Arteta wanted, but we don't seem to have developed a style of play yet. We still seem all over the place. And I think the Crystal Palace game highlighted that quite a lot, and quite worryingly, actually, for me, because now we've got the players that Arteta wanted to buy, and we still are producing performances like that. Unfortunately, too many of them, especially at home, actually, which is a worry, because you need to make your home your fortress, don't you? And you need to pick up as many points as you can. And we haven't really been doing that over. I know, there were no fans in last season. It was a strange season all round, I guess, but we haven't picked up this season from that really yet at home. And we are hit and miss. And and I think maybe, you guys are perhaps in this, as you said before, we may be coming into this game in very similar form. And we are at a very similar start to the season, because there's only 1 point separating us. So it kind of sums it up, really, doesn't it, where we both are at this moment in time.
Yeah, I will certainly be getting on both teams to score tomorrow.
Yeah, it would seem like that. But I say, we haven't scored against you for a long time, so who knows where we might go with that. Nigel in the chat there, he says, Arsenal are charging a premium because of who we've been historically. Yeah, and where we are in the world, based in London, obviously, and a new stadium, I guess, or a newish stadium. In a similar way that Liverpool United shelled out £80 million for Van Dijk and Maguire. Yeah, they did, but the £80 million they spent out have improved their team. The money we've spent out, unfortunately, so far hasn't, which... or hasn't improved it significantly enough to make much difference when you finish late. I mean, from Aston Villa's point of view, if you were finishing, last season, you finished, was it 9th or 10th, wasn't it, just below us? I think it was.
Well, we finished 11th in the ends.
Was it 11th? Yeah. I know you was, it wasn't much in it in terms of points at the end, was there? There was a lot of teams very close together, and if you finish around that sort of a little bit higher than that this season, I suppose you'll be happy. Do you expect more than that, maybe? Do you think you can challenge for the top 6?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a lot of unrealistic expectations that a lot of the supporters that are used to playing Football Manager think, we spent £100 million, so we've got to finish in the top 6. Well, it doesn't really work that way, because it's not as if we've gone from changing the goalkeeper over, which is pretty much a like for like. We've completely changed the way that we play. We used to play 4-2-3-1 or 4-5-1. And now all of a sudden we've gone from going 4-4-2 to 3 or 5-3-2, whichever way you want to look at it, and playing 2 guys up front. The one thing I think we've got badly wrong is that last year Watkins did a lot of great work outside of the box. Ings does his work in the box. He's a great finisher, and it seems to be Watkins seems to be playing centrally, and Ings seems to be playing wider, and I don't really understand that. But they're still trying to find their partnership together. But I've got no doubt Danny Ings will score goals, and Ollie Watkins will score his fair share. So I think there's goals in our team, but we're not as strong defensively as we was last season, unfortunately, and that's why I don't see us keeping a clean sheet tomorrow.
No, you don't seem quite as solid defensively. I mean, I know it's a sort of different system slightly, isn't it, this season? Different three, I bet you've been playing more often than not, haven't you, rather than the four from last year. And maybe, like you said, it's just a matter of the players adapting to a new system, which sometimes can take a bit of time. Obviously, you've got Twanzebe playing quite a bit, haven't you? How's he been doing?
He's really, really hit and miss. He came in and he started quite well. And then, of course, when we played Manchester United away, he couldn't play because of the loan agreement. And Corey House came in, had a great game, scored the winner, and then played the next game, and then had a pretty average game against Tottenham. And Twanzebe came in, and I think they wanted to play Twanzebe because they thought Jimenez was going to play for Wolves. And he's quick, nimble, sharp, and that's what Twanzebe's actually good at. He's a bit like a Martin Keown type defender. He's a little bit all over you, really tight and close to you, whereas Cons is a very neat, he's a bit of a Rolls-Royce defender. He's very much like Ben White, actually. They're very, very similar players. And Tyrone Mings is, I mean, most of the fans love him to death, but he's got a mistake in him. Every game, he's got a mistake in him. And they're just silly mistakes where he's trying to be too cavalier or trying to do things that he can't do. And interestingly, last year, he cut that out of his game last year quite a lot. And I don't know whether that's got anything to do with the fact that Terry's no longer there and he's now trying to be a little bit more expressive and trying to... There was an instance on Saturday where a centre-forward was sort of backing him into the corner, towards the corner flag, and rather than just kick the ball out for a throw-in, he tried to do a trick and almost tackled himself and it went out for a corner. And then nearly scored from the corner. You just put it out for a throw-in, get back in there and reset and start again. Just do the basics really well. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I think it'll be a good game. Two sides that like to go at it. I'm terrified of Aubameyang. He always looks to me as though he's going to score against us, although his record isn't that great against us. No, but he always looks to me as though he's got a goal in him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's probably the the main goal threat that we've got. Although Lacazette came on the other night and played quite well, so I don't know whether he might actually play at some stage, whether he might start. I mean, the two of them seem to link up quite well together, actually. They've not really played much together, but they seem to have a couple of nice little 1-2s together on the edge of the box and stuff, which maybe might work. I mean, you'll be playing probably two up front, and then maybe we could kind of almost match up your system a little bit, perhaps. I don't know if Arteta will do that. Russ is in the chat there. He says, "Evening, chaps. How you doing, Russ? Thanks for tuning in." And Nigel says, "Does Ali Watkins have the potential to eventually supplant Harry Kane as England's number 9?" I'd love to see Kane to be out of the team from somebody. I'm not quite sure Watkins is ready yet, is he, for that step up?
I don't think so.
He may well develop. Do you think he may? Obviously, he's done well at Aston Villa, hasn't he? Since he's first into the Premier League.
He's done well, but in the same way that I was talking up Jack Grealish earlier, I think if I think I could probably name 6 strikers I'd have in front of him, English strikers, to play for England. But his work rate is fabulous. I just don't think he's quite good enough to make that much of a difference at the international. Hopefully, I'll be proven wrong, because if he goes on to play for England and start games for England, he's doing very, very, very well for Aston Villa. But I just don't think he's quite good enough at that level.
Yet, maybe. I mean, he's still quite young. He's still learning, isn't he? He may well improve. And I think playing with Danny Ings may help him, because obviously Danny Ings got a lot of experience in the Premier League as well, so that might maybe help him along the way, but we'll see. But no, I mean, I think he's done well since he's come into the Premier League. But I mean, he scored plenty of goals last season, and I think he's a good player. But I agree that there maybe is slightly better English strikers at the moment ahead of him, and I think he would need to improve a fair bit, a bit more consistent, score a lot more goals, I think, as well, really. I mean, for all his hard work, as you say, he's not a 25-30 goal a season striker, is he?
No.
Yeah. And even 20. I mean, he got about 17, didn't he, last season? Something like that.
He got 16 or 17. And this is only his second year in the Premier League, so we've got to give him a little bit time to sort of settle in. I was surprised that you were allowed to use those two names on Harry Kane. I didn't think you'd be able to use those two words on this show. I can't imagine he's very popular. He's about as popular as someone like Robbie Savage is to Aston Villa.
No, he's not. He's not the most popular, but he's been struggling quite a bit, actually, hasn't he, recently for Tottenham and for England, which is nice to see. But yeah, I mean, he's always going to play for England, isn't he? At the moment, he's regular striker, so we do need somebody to come along and push him out of the way. I mean, obviously, there's Dominic Calvert-Lewin at Everton, who's maybe made a case for himself. He's got a lot of goals, but there doesn't seem to be anybody that you can look at their goal scoring record in the Premier League and think, well, they're ready to come in for Harry Kane yet, unfortunately. And although Harry Kane's struggling, he does score goals, and he's got a good goal scoring record for England. So, maybe that's a little while off yet. Until maybe he gets his move to Man City, then we'll see what happens then, maybe, because I'm sure he'll end up there eventually. They couldn't quite get him this year, but maybe I'm sure they'll come back, because that seems to be the player they're lacking, actually, which would be frightening if they got a player like that, wouldn't it?
You're right there. I was really surprised. I thought that the Grealish thing in the summer was a little bit more of a smokescreen to try and push Tottenham to move it on and Kane to move it on, because if you look at their players, they needed Kane far more than they needed Grealish. I thought if they'd have got Kane, I think just close the bets off and the league title's over there, because the one thing Kane will do is score. And if he just stays in the box and you supply him with goals, he'll score. So I don't know what all that was about, but your friends across the road, Levy has clearly done something wrong there, hasn't he? Kane's not the type of guy, I don't think, that plays up because he just doesn't get the move that he wants. There must have been an agreement or some sort of verbal discussion saying that you're going to move on. And the only reason that Jack ended up leaving was that in the last contract extension that he signed, his agent put in the £100 million clause. Otherwise, we don't need to sell, because our owners are very, very, very wealthy, and he'd only just signed a 5-year contract. So, really, if a club has a bid accepted, it's then up to the player, and he ended up taking 20 or 25 grand a week less than the contract offer he was being offered at Aston Villa. So he's gone for footballing reasons, and I hope he gets a good reception when he comes back. I know there's some people that will boo him, but just think, I don't understand that. But from a footballing point of view, he had to make the move.
Yeah, and I think, what we just said earlier about the England situation as well, it's obviously important for his career, wasn't it, to make that move? And I suppose that it's obviously a big loss to you guys. And he's an Aston Villa fan, been there all his career, and he was Aston Villa through and through. So it must be hard as an Aston Villa fan to see him playing in the Premier League for somebody else. And it will be interesting to see what reception he does get, actually. But hopefully it'll be a good reception, because
I hope so too.
I think he deserves a good reception from Aston Villa, because he's given a lot of his career to the club, hasn't he?
But interestingly, there's a guy who sits next to me, and they were talking about when the game is. I think it's November time. And so I can't wait to get there, because I'm going to boo him every time he touches the ball. Oh, that's interesting. So when the ball goes over to our left back, Ashley Young, and you're going to applaud him and cheer him, aren't you? He left us to go to Manchester United, and he was very, very clear that he didn't want to play for us anymore, and he was desperate to get out. Now you were cheering him, and then you've got a guy who's a Villa fan through and through, who's been a season ticket holder with his family since the age of 4, and he's been offered the chance to go and play at a team that's probably one of the two sides most likely to win the Champions League. Are you mad?
Yeah, but that's football fans, though, isn't it? That's football fans, isn't it? Yeah, I think we, as football fans, sometimes we see the world in a slightly different way when it comes to our club, I suppose, maybe. And but it's the way it is. I mean, there's only maybe 1 or 2 players ever that's left Arsenal that I've been really upset but disappointed about. The rest of them, I think, if you don't want to play for the club or whatever it is, move on, and we'll get someone else, and that's the way it is. The club's bigger than the player, isn't it? Any player, no matter how good they are. We've had some great players at Arsenal over the years that have all left and gone away and moved on, and you just get on with it, and other players come in, and unfortunately some of them you miss more than others, because that's the nature of it, isn't it? But at least you've invested the money well in the squad, and hopefully you're not gonna, so far it does, and the points that you've got and stuff like that, really, you probably wouldn't have done a lot better if you'd if he'd been in the team, I wouldn't have thought necessarily would it, so far. So, you know, when you look at it like that, I suppose it's probably maybe going to work out for both you guys and for him as well. So a bit like
I think the move made a lot of sense for us as well. That for the same amount of money, we've been able to bring in Buendia, Ings, and Bailey. Buendia, who's 24, Bailey's 22, and Danny Ings, I think, is 29. So the first two, Buendia and Bailey, they've got years but so they're only going to improve. Danny Ings has probably got 3 years, right, maybe 4, depending on how well he's looked after, right at the very, very top. And they've tried to look at creating goals. How are we going to replace the goals that he scored and the goals he's created? And I think we've now got 3 players in for one. And Jack has struggled twice over the last 3 years. The shin splints and has ended up missing sort of 12 and 13 games respectively. So when he was out the side, it was, what do we do now? Who do we pass it to? And there are some very, very good players like John McGinn still in the team, but Grealish was our talisman. But now, you know, if Ings doesn't play, we could go back to playing 5 across the middle and just play Watkins up front. We've got options now. We didn't when Jack was out the team.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how that works, isn't it? I mean, I remember when Thierry Henry left Arsenal, and of course he was our talisman at the time. Yeah. And, you know, I like most Arsenal fans, you know, worried about what would happen without him. But that season, the first season after he left, was probably the best season that we've had. We haven't had a better season than that since. You know, we've got 83 points in the Premier League and we're close to winning the title that year. So, you know, sometimes it brings the best out of other players who are maybe more able to express themselves more, doesn't it? Sometimes when a player like that leaves, because other players have to step up, and they often do, and they certainly did for us that season. It seems as though, like you said, you've got options there. A player I did want to talk to you about actually is Douglas Luiz, because he's a player that I kind of felt could have been a good fit for Arsenal. Obviously, he knows Arteta from his Man City days. I mean, how's he been doing for you guys? Because I kind of like him as a player. I think he does a good job in the field.
It's interesting, really, because he plays as a sort of a 6 or one of these central defensive midfield players, but he's very, very good on the ball. Very good, and he always seems to want to have a flick and a trick, which isn't normally what you'd associate with a defensive midfield player. They normally take a touch, pass it on, move the ball, get tackles in. But he's only, I think he's 22, maybe 23 at a push. I think he's going to be a hell of a player. He's making mistakes at the moment, but people have to remember that he's 22, and he's a Brazilian guy. I think this is his 3rd year in playing in the Premier League, and one of those he played in empty stadiums. So he does make mistakes, and he does dwell on the ball a little bit too much and try and play sort of traditional Brazilian style balls where you just think, just pass it 15 yards, you've done your job, pass it on. He's, you know, for me, when people criticise, I think, well, Guardiola wanted to keep him at Man City. So that's normally a good sign for me. And I think he'll only improve. The one thing, I'll be interested in your views after the game. The one thing that sometimes they levy against him is the English game a little bit too quick for him, a bit too helter-skelter. If you put him in Spain or Italy, I think he'd be absolutely incredible, where they can have time to take a bit of a touch on the ball. He's very, very neat and good on the ball. But sometimes it's a bit helter-skelter. He has the world's most incredibly frustrating habit of, he will always give a free kick away on the edge of the box. Always. And interestingly, the blooming bloke who came on for him on Jacob Ramsey, one of our young academy graduates, came on. He did exactly the same for Wolves' last goal.
Last goal, I saw that,
Don't do that there. Foul him 35, 40 yards out, but Luiz just tries to win the ball. But as a South American player, where normally you go anywhere near them and they fall over, he does have a tendency to just foul people, and they're not even up for dispute. No one can say it's not a foul. I mean, they're just ridiculous fouls he gives away. But he's neat. He's very, very neat.
Yeah. No, he looks a good player. So I've had my eye on him for a couple of years, actually. And I say, because of the Arteta kind of connection, I felt that could have maybe been an option. I mean, we are short in midfield, and now Xhaka's injured as well. I mean, someone like Douglas Luiz would be a good replacement for Xhaka long term. Obviously, a young player, as you said, and I'm sure he will improve. And I don't know how likely that could be to happen. It probably costs a lot of money because he's a young player and he's on a good contract at Villa. But he's a player I've been kind of watching. I say for a couple of years now at Aston Villa. And he does look good every time I've seen him play, and he does look like the sort of player that would do a good job in the Arsenal team, because that's a position that we are short in. We saw that against Crystal Palace. Thomas Partey needs somebody like Douglas Luiz alongside him, I think, who can get around.
He's very neat. He's very neat on the ball, and Arsenal traditionally like to play, and Arteta's where he's been historically with Guardiola and stuff. They like to play. I could see that being a fit. I mean, interesting. I think he's only got just under 2 years left on his contract, so they're sort of weighing up at the moment. Are they going to offer him a new contract, which I think would be stupid not to, because otherwise you're going to end up losing him for cut price money. And he's 22, maybe 23, as I mentioned earlier. So he's only going to get better. So get him on a long-term contract. And if he wants to have a buyout clause, then you can have a buyout clause. But for someone like him, if you put it in at 75 million, fine.
Yeah.
He's not worth that. He's not worth that. But if someone comes in and offers you 75 million pounds, then move him on.
I mean, that would be the danger from Arsenal's point of view. We wouldn't be able to afford that much money for one player, probably. I wouldn't have thought we would do that. I mean, it'd probably end up going somewhere like Newcastle when they've got all their money to spend. It could end up somewhere like, couldn't it, part of their rebuild, maybe. But he's a player I would like at Arsenal, actually.
Yeah. Newcastle might be a bit cold for him being from Brazil. I'm not sure.
Yeah, possibly. I don't think too many Brazilians have got much history at Newcastle, have they? There's not many Brazilians that play. The Arsenal have had a few over the years, so it might be a better fit for him. But anyway, money seems to talk at the moment in football, so I'm sure that's what will happen. And Nigel sort of says there, are Villa fans generally happy with Dean Smith in charge? The managerial position always seems to be a point of contention at Arsenal. Well, it is at the moment with Arteta. I mean, what are you guys feeling about Dean Smith? I mean, he's done a good job, hasn't he? I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Well, what is the not to like? When he took over 3 years ago, we were 13th in the Championship and had just been beaten 3-0 away at Wigan. Every year we've improved. We've gone from 13th to 6th, promoted, 11th, and to tap it all up. I mean, it shouldn't be the ultimate measurement, but he's an absolute diehard Villa fan as well. His family are all Villa fans. In fact, actually, one of my good friends, I'll give a shout out for him, Rob Carlos, he's actually family with him. And he said for years and years, even when he was playing at Warsaw, they're mad keen Villa fans, and why would you not want a Villa fan managing your club, but also doing a good job? And the acid test is always when people say, well, just get rid of the managers. Okay, and replace him with who? Oh, yeah, I don't know, just anyone. No, you can't just get rid of a player, because if you get rid of a manager, you bring somebody else in, and then all of a sudden they say, I don't fancy Danny Ings, I don't fancy Buendia. We've just spent £75 million on that.
Yeah.
Now we need to move them on. I want to go a different way.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that changing the manager can cause more problems sometimes, and it's not always the answer. But I guess, I mean, Aston Villa got no reason to consider changing their manager because, like you said, they're improving year on year, and I'm sure there's no reason for that to be a case. I mean, I think with Arsenal, I think we're underperforming for a couple of years now, and unless there's some major improvements this season, then I'm not sure how long we can keep going with a manager that isn't working. I mean, that's the way I look at it. At some point, every manager reaches the end of their time at a club. Even Alex Ferguson reached the end eventually, didn't he? So, and I think Arteta's not far off that. You mentioned it sort of earlier on, didn't you? Yeah. I mean, I know the club have just spent a lot of money on the players he wanted, and I'm sure they're going to be wanting to give him time. But unless results start to improve, performances more consistently start to improve, and we do start pushing our way up the league, then, if at the end of this season we're still in a similar position to we were last year, if we're not in Europe again, then to me he's failed. And he's failed 2 years in a row, despite having the money invested in the players that he wanted. So I don't know. I'm not sure if he can last another season unless we are back in Europe again. And I think that should be the minimum that we should be aiming for, personally, as Arsenal.
Yeah, I think so. A club like Arsenal have got to be in Europe. You don't want to be in that league that Tottenham are in. I think it's actually quite funny watching them in that. But you know, interestingly, do you think that Arteta was actually quite fortunate to get the Arsenal job? Because, you know, I look at people like Gerrard's doing a good job at Rangers in a two-man league or two-team league. Lampard, really, what? I don't think they've earned the right to get a job like Arsenal. Now, I don't think that, you know, it's necessarily it has to be a name. It's got to be the right people for the jobs. But I think someone like Arsenal, they need to be having the status, the history of Arsenal Football Club. You should be having one of the top managers. I mean, people like, I think he'd be the wrong type of manager for Arsenal because of his style and the way that he is. But someone like Simeone at Atletico Madrid, he's the type of stature of manager I would associate with Arsenal. I don't think he's right because of he's so unarsed in his values and the way that he goes about playing and everything. But I'm sure you get my drift. That you are still, for me, one of the top 4 clubs in England, and yeah, you're going through a little bit of a rough spell at the moment, but you know, let's not kid ourselves here. There's only one reason why Manchester City are where they are. You know, 10 years ago, they were struggling mid-table in the Championship, so they're there because of the money, as a Chelsea, whereas Arsenal have been historically, and more recently as well, a successful team. I think you deserve better than that, and maybe Arteta will go on to develop, but I think people like that shouldn't get a job at Arsenal first. They should go to a Brentford, hypothetically, do a job there for 2 years, get them flying, like Thomas Frank has done at Brentford, like Potter's done at Brighton, and say, right, okay, now you've shown that you can play the way that Arsenal play, and Brentford and Brighton play what I see the Arsenal way. And those type of managers, there's no way in the world that Potter is going to get the Arsenal job. It's not a big enough name.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, Arteta hadn't had any experience of being a manager. He'd been number 2. He'd left Arsenal and gone to be number 2 at Man City straight away. And that's his only experience. And yes, you could say that's good experience under Pep at Man City, all those great players. But I believe at the time, Arsenal needed a more experienced manager and maybe a better man manager. I think Arteta's a good coach. And I think, you know, I've said this before, I've actually described him as like a whiteboard coach. I think he'll have his board, he's really good with all that kind of stuff. But actually getting the players to be able to do it and adapting to the players that he's got and adapting to the game situations he struggles with. It's all very rigid with Arteta. And, you know, and I think as a number 2, I think he's probably a really good number 2. And some number 2s can never be a good number 1. And maybe Arteta might end up being like that, unfortunately for him. And I think he may be better off being a number 2. And if it's number 2 at Arsenal and we get an experienced manager in ahead of him, I don't see how that can possibly work. But that may have been a better option at the time when we got Arteta. But I think he was a cheap option. He wasn't going to demand massive transfer fees for players. And they probably felt that that was a direction the club wanted to go in. And maybe that's why he got the job. I mean, I'm looking now at Crystal Palace, who we played Monday. Patrick Vieira, an absolute legend at Arsenal as a player, seems to be finding his feet now as a manager. His first job in the Premier League, early days, of course. And I'm not saying he should come to Arsenal now, but I can see in the future, a year or 2 down the line, if he's doing well at Crystal Palace, I'm sure he wants the Arsenal job. I'm 100% certain. From what he said in his interviews after the game the other night, it was almost like he was auditioning his team that on Monday night for almost to say, look, this is what I can do. And yes, it's very early, as well. But he's been a number 1 at 3 different clubs now. He's got that experience. And yes, he's not the big name that you mentioned. I agree. I mean, when Wenger went, you know, we got Emery in, who wasn't a massive name, but he'd had success, and he was a top level coach, and it didn't quite work out for one reason or another. And Arsenal gone a different direction with Arteta, and maybe we do need, I don't know whether we need an ex-player or an ex-Arsenal legend as manager, but someone who can get the best out of the budgets that we've got and what we've got to work with, because we're never gonna be a Manchester City or a Chelsea or now a Newcastle. We've got to work with the budget that we've got, and we need a manager who can do that. And at the moment, I don't think we have. unfortunately. And unless Arteta can make these improvements now till the end of the season and get us certainly back in Europe, then I don't think he's going to be here next season, unfortunately. And then we'll have to rethink our plans and see who's available and who we can get. But it's going to be difficult because I don't think we can attract a big name manager if we're not in Europe. I don't think we can, because a big name manager is going to want to be in Europe, and also they're going to want certain guarantees about the budgets that they've got, what players they can buy. And I don't think we can give them those guarantees. And that's probably why we've got Arteta, because his lack of experience meant he couldn't come in demanding, I want this player, I want that player, I want to spend 100 million on this, that, and the other, because he hasn't got the backing of his career behind him. Whereas a manager, say like Conte, who has got that, he's going to come in and say, well, look, I can win you trophies, I can win you the Premier League, but I need this and this and this. And I don't think Arsenal are ready to do that. And that's the problem that we're in. And we might have to rethink the way that we've run a club. Maybe what's happened at Newcastle might kick them a little bit and say, you know what, if we don't start spending a bit more money and having more ambition, other clubs are going to come in and overtake us as well, and we're going to end up drifting further down, and we've drifted far enough down already. So yeah, we're in a bit of a dilemma with that at the minute, and I'm not really sure where it's going to lead at the minute. Actually, I think we're treading water a little bit for me, which isn't really what Arsenal should be doing. But it's maybe just one of the cycles that we're on at the minute. We're at the bottom of this cycle, and hopefully we can come around and come back up again. And I'm sure we will, because historically we have done, but it just might take a long time. And unfortunately, that's one thing you don't tend to get in football these days, much time. Yeah, whether you're a manager
or you don't, sadly. But if you need a reference, we'll give you a reference for Brucey if you like.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I was going to mention Bruce to you, because obviously he's just been sacked this week with Newcastle, and you know he did a great job at Villa Park, didn't he, a few years back?
Yeah, he did all right, actually. He did all right,
yeah.
Particularly given the mess that the club was in. We had a Chinese owner who, if you watch the TV documentaries, we were one of the clubs that were bending rules all round, and it was just looked a real mess. But his style of play is just not great to watch. It really isn't. It's set up for. He's perfect. He's a bit like an Allardyce, I think. He's perfect.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
For a side that's in the bottom two, they've got to scrape out and be difficult to beat. Things such as that. He'd be fine at something like that. But I don't think I think the way he's been treated at Newcastle has been really poor, really. I mean, they had Benitez, who was there and wouldn't stay because they wouldn't give him loads of money. Everywhere he's gone, he's wanted money. And Bruce has come in and worked with a very average squad, not spent a great deal of money, and he seems to be a good guy. I just think he's had a bit of a raw deal there.
No, I agree. I think he's been treated quite badly. The fans he's never had the support of the fans, despite being a local lad and a Newcastle fan when he was a kid. I spoke about Dean Smith before, being an Aston Villa fan, and you'd imagine that would give you a little bit of I don't know, a bit more understanding maybe from the fans with him. But I mean, I understand why Newcastle fans were unhappy with him, because they want to see the team playing better football. But with the budget that he had and with the players that he had and stuff like that, I suppose he did what he had to do, which was keep Newcastle in the Premier League, and he did it 2 seasons running. And yeah, it wasn't great football, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons why the Newcastle fans were so much against him. And he seemed to make some strange tactical decisions and team selections and stuff. But ultimately, he did the job he was there for, which was to keep him up, and he did it. He was successful at that, I suppose. But the club have got better ambitions now, or bigger ambitions, haven't they? Now they've got this money and they're going to want to go in a different direction. So I think it was obvious that he wasn't going to stay and be a part of that. And he's been a manager for 20 years or so, hasn't he? So maybe it's time he had a break away and maybe got away from football for a bit. And he had a long career as a player, successful career. He's had a long career as a manager. Maybe he just needs to take a back seat now and have a break and see if he can come back. But he's only ever going to really ever be a manager for those sort of clubs. You mentioned Sam Allardyce, and I see him exactly like that. He's a sort of manager that can come in a sort of a team that's maybe struggling and try to keep them up. And he's done that quite successfully at a few clubs, hasn't he? Is he a manager who can take a club any further than that? Probably not. But some managers don't. That's just their job, isn't it? And that's what he is. And obviously Newcastle now have got a different regime in place, and they want more than that. And you can't blame the fans, I suppose, for that. Gary from DWT's in chat. He says, "Hello, Richard and Froggy. How you doing, Gary? Thanks for tuning in." He said Renarson and Arteta are similar in that they both aren't ready for a job at Arsenal. Arteta needs multiple jobs as a manager to be ready for a big six. So he does. Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, you're totally spot on. He does. Yeah. And he's come in straight away, his first job at Arsenal, which it shouldn't really happen, should it? Nigel says there's Zidane and Conte there for the taking in a similar way that Klopp and Pep were in 2015. We need to capitalise when some of the best managers around are available. Yeah, but unfortunately, it does depend on what they're able to do at the club. They'll look at it as well, won't they? If they feel they've got their hands behind their back, they're not going to come, are they? Because they can go somewhere else.
Well, yeah, because Conte's won titles everywhere he's been. He's just won the Euros with Italy.
Yeah, he'll be able to go anywhere he wants. He'll be able to go anywhere he wants.
Coming to Arsenal, yeah, I'll come to Arsenal. I'll take the job. His wages will be high. And you were talking, he'll be wanting £250,000 to spend, or £200,000 to spend, plus whatever I can get rid of out of this squad. And it'll take two seasons to build the team, and they just don't give people that type of time. Zidane, I think, falls into almost the same bucket as Arteta. He's never done any managerial work before. He got the job at Real Madrid because of who he was and who played there. And you can say he did a good job, but I think any manager worth their salt in Spain, there's only 3 teams that can win that league. In England, you could probably Liverpool could win it, Chelsea could win it, Man City could win it, and the others could be competitive. But I don't know which way Arsenal go. But I think if they do decide to make a change, I think they need to go with someone and stick with it for a period of time.
Yeah, and I think at the moment it seems as though that the plan for the club is to go with younger players and to build something over the next 3 or 4 years. And if that's the case, then maybe Arteta is the man that they want to do that, because he's not going to demand the money and stuff like that. But I just think that Arsenal are going to end up just treading water, dropping behind even further than we have done already. And it's going to be very difficult to come back from that. You know, despite the history that the club have got, it's not always about that, is it? You've got to be able to compete in the here and now. And I don't know whether Arsenal quite set their targets to do that at this moment in time. And in 3 or 4 years, when these players might be ready, where we'll be. Because who knows what other clubs are going to get money and investment and pull away from us even more. It's, you know, even Aston Villa yourselves, you know, you've caught us up over the last couple of years.
Well, yeah, if you think where we were 3 years ago, we were miles away from you. But it's competitive. You've got the teams like your friends across the road that should really be top 10. Leeds have come up and looked decent, struggling a bit this year. Brighton are doing really well this year. I think they'll eventually have their wobble and injuries will catch up with them. But it's good to see a competitive Premier League where sides can beat each other. I mean, I think Norwich are going to really struggle, aren't they? And can't see how they're going to survive. And I would find it one of the funniest things in the world if Newcastle went down. I really would find that funny. And I know my good friend Paul Carter, who put my name forward to me for this, wouldn't thank me for that. But it would just be quite ironic and the most Newcastle thing in the world for them to get relegated and then not be able to spend hardly any money at all. Because
it would be quite ironic, I suppose, if that happened, I guess. But I think they've got enough to survive. They're going to get a new manager at some stage soon, and they can get a few players in January. I'm sure they'll be fine. But yeah, that would be quite ironic, wouldn't it, if they end up going down in being the richest club in the Championship rather than the richest club in the world. But anyway, we'll see what happens with that. There's still a long way to go this season, of course, as we know. Sort of moving back onto tomorrow night's game, obviously. Are you expecting too many changes to the Aston Villa lineup from the lot? You still think it's going to be the sort of 3-4-1?
I think it will be. I think it will be. I don't think it should be, personally, because you guys don't traditionally play a sort of a front two.
No.
I mean, I think that there is a lot to work with Lacazette and Aubameyang, and I've always thought Aubameyang will be better through the middle, but I don't see the same amount of games as you do, so you might have a different opinion on that. I can see him probably sort of matching up systems with 3. I don't see us making many changes. I think if there's any changes, Courtney House may come in for Twanzebe. I don't think there's any chance at all that Bailey or Bertrand Traore will start the game tomorrow, but I think Bailey will be ready to go at half time or after an hour if it's not going the way that it needs to. And we'll still play the 3 in the middle of Louise, McGinn and Buendia. with Cash and Target as the wing backs. So I don't expect there to be many changes. We don't often make that many changes, really. One, because we've historically never had a great deal of additional resource to bring on that's better than what's in the team. I think that's if Bailey's fit, he plays. I don't know where, and because we haven't seen it, he hasn't been fit all season. But when he's fit, he'll definitely play because he's a match winner.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm sure he was. Whether he's ready to start the game, he said he's not really played much, has he, for a while. So it'll be interesting to see how that maybe goes. I mean, in terms of Arsenal, is Aubameyang the player that you maybe fear the most then ahead of the game?
I think himself. I do like Smith Rowe. I was quite excited when all those sort of rumours were flying around at the start of the season, although in reality, never thought that was going to come to anything. I think Smith Rowe is a really neat player, but Aubameyang's got to be the guy that you think he's the one most likely to hurt you, because he's a proven scorer. He's done it year in, year out, and he seems to be the person you think, yeah, I think he could cause us some problems. I don't know about Pepe. I'm really not sure about him. I'm sure you guys are as well. You know, he turns up one week and you think, is he just won a competition at the stand to get a game, and then the next week he's the best player on the pitch, and you think, what's going on there?
It's not even on a week-to-week basis. It's almost in a game. He'll have a good 10 minutes, and then he'll have a really, really poor 20 minutes. Then he'll have a good 5 minutes, and then he'll have a really, really poor 10 minutes. And every game he's like that. He plays. He's so inconsistent. I mean, the other night against Crystal Palace, he did some great things, and then he'd mix it up with some really, really poor things, giving the ball away, running down blind alleys, falling over his own feet. And then 2 minutes later, he's going around 4 players and putting a cross in, and obviously setting up that first goal and, you know, creating a second one as well. So, you know, he is very, very inconsistent, and he frustrates the hell out of most Arsenal fans, I think, really. Certainly most Arsenal fans that I've spoken to, he does frustrate us. But, yeah, on his day, on his 10 minutes, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's not enough to win your games.
What's the story with Saka? Because that was quite a kick he got. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any news yet as to whether he's going to be fit to play. I'm kind of leaning towards the fact that he won't be, just because it looked a nasty kick that he got. And even if it's only a bruising, is he going to be fit enough to play on a Friday, having that on Monday? I'm not sure. So I'm not sure he will play, actually, which is a shame, because he's one of our better players, as we've already said. So it'd be a shame if he misses the game, but ultimately injuries are injuries. So I don't think he will play. You know, he might be on the bench, maybe. I'm not sure, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that happens. Gary says there actually in the chat that Saka practiced today, I believe. Still no reason to rush him back. Yeah, just because he might have been training doesn't necessarily mean he's fit enough to play the game, though, does it? So
I agree.
But
I agree. No need to rush him back. No need to rush him back.
There isn't.
Another week. There isn't. Have another week's rest.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you'd be happy if he doesn't play, but we'll see. I mean, I think if he's fit enough, then he should play, and I'm sure he will. Gary also says there, Pepe was good for the first 10 minutes, disappeared for 80, then finished 5 minutes of extra time. Yeah, but that's what he does. He drifts in and out of games every single week, so that's not unusual there. And Nigel says there, mid-table purgatory beckons. Yeah, I think the next few years at the moment, sickening to think about women's football will be our salvation. Well, it certainly might be. The Arsenal women are doing really well at the minute. And Nigel says there, the Pepe YouTube highlights had me fooled when he signed for us. Well, I think anyone's YouTube highlights can look good, can't they? I suppose. But anyway, I mean, from Aston Villa's point of view, the one player that I actually really like, well, several players I like Aston, but we've already mentioned Douglas Luiz. I do like McGinn as well. I think he's a great little player in midfield for Villa, and I think he scored one of the goals. Oh no, I think he got one disallowed, didn't he, against us at the Emirates last year?
Yeah. If he scores, do yourself a favour, get on your whatever betting tube it is. Every time he scores in a game, we lose.
Really?
Every single time he scores, we lose.
I hope he scores in. Because no, but he's a good player, actually. He's a good player, and
he's a player that he's the one. If you ask me now, other than Martinez, which one of our players could go into any side in the Premier League and be able to play and not look out of their depth and make a difference? It's him. It's absolute. His work rate is incredible. He's got this little trick that he does where he sucks people in, and he's so small and stocky. He sticks his backside out, and you just can't get around him.
Get around him, yeah.
You have to have a passport to go around him, because I think you go through 3 countries trying to get around his arse when he's there. And he sucks at City. And he does get a goal every now and then. When he scored on Saturday to make it 2-0, we were all saying around by us, oh, the hoodoo's over now. Little did we know the fun and games that was about to arise.
Yeah, no, I didn't realise that every time he scores, you lose. So yeah, I'll maybe stick a few quid on him scoring and hope for the best. But we'll see. I bet he's a good player. And I say, because our midfield is our weak area. You know, I quite often watch the midfield players at other clubs and kind of think, well, if only we had a player like that, it would make a massive difference to us. And McGinn would be that sort of player.
You've looked at those guys that you've bought, like Partey and stuff like that, in the sense of midfield. McGinn is streets in front of these people, and I'm so glad that teams haven't come in looking at him. I just cannot believe sides have not come in to have a look at this guy. He's 26, 27 years of age. He plays every game, 2-footed, wins tackles.
Yeah.
Seems to be a brilliant character around. He's the one that's always dressing up as the funky chicken in the dress. He's the sort of one of the prankers. Brilliant attitude. He's the type of guy, when you turn up, you know he is a minimum 7 out of 10. Absolute minimum, nailed on every single game. He is to us. He is as important to us as I would say someone like Vieira or Petit was for you in the central midfield. He's not as good as those two, but he's that important to us.
No, I mean, he's a great player, and you know, even for Scotland as well, he's producing performances on a consistent basis. And I look at midfield players, and you've got 2 midfield players that I think would massively improve what we've got in our squad. Certainly, maybe not necessarily would they both play every week. McGinn probably would, but Partey needs a partner. We're crying out for a partner for Partey, and you know, you've got a couple there in your midfield that could well do that job for us, but I'm not sure if we'd ever get them. But anyway, that we'll have to wait and see about that. But he's certainly the player I think tomorrow. I think he might be key. I think if he plays well and dominates the midfield, then that's going to give you the edge, I believe, possibly. I don't think there's a lot to choose, as we've said, between the sides this season. So I think midfield is going to be important. We've been poor in midfield. We haven't got a Xhaka. And I think that could be the area that you could exploit, because you've got some good players there. And if McGinn has a good game, then that may swing it in your favour, maybe. But we'll have to see.
Yeah. If we can get onto the game, if we can get onto the ball, and you can get Buendia on the ball, Buendia is very dangerous. If you give him time, space on the ball, he's very, very creative. But if you can't get on the ball, although he works really hard, gets his tackles in, he doesn't contribute a huge amount, because he's a small guy. Unless he's on the ball, he's there to open teams up. So, you know, if you do give us a lot of the ball, and McGinn can win the ball back, and Louise can win the ball back and get Buendia onto the ball, I think we can cause you problems. If we don't, then we don't actually create that much.
No, I mean, you've scored a lot more goals than we have this season, that's for sure. But most teams have, to be fair, so that's not really much of a judge, I suppose. So Gary says, if Arteta can bottle the last 5 minutes with Uber, Laka and Pepe, I may smile tomorrow. I wish. Well, yeah, they certainly looked a lot more lively, didn't we, at the end of the game? And Gary says, Froggy, any weak links in the Villa lineup? Maybe defensively, perhaps we've mentioned already.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't go so far to say weak links. I think, as I mentioned before, I think Tyrone Mings does a great job for us. He does have a rick in him. He does have a bit of a rick in him. Matt Targett can't cross the road. So as a left wing back, just allow him the ball. He'll never, ever beat the first man. But he's actually good defensively. I don't think we have any what I'd class as weak links. The one thing that has surprised me this year, and I think it's just the surprise, it's just the setting up of the new system, is that we don't create that much. And some of that is based around the fact that we don't have any absolute outright pace in the team. Bailey does have outright blistering pace. Other than that, we haven't really got anyone that can run in behind and really cause people problems. Watkins has got a yard, but he's not He's not like bad comparison there, but he's not like a Thierry Henry. You can put the ball over him and he can gain 2 yards back, and those type of players. So I would probably say our weak links are we don't create that much, and we do have a habit of just giving away just a silly goal. I mean, a really stupid goal from nowhere, really.
Bit similar to us, actually, and we don't create a lot. We give away stupid goals, and that's probably why we are so close together in the league. Maybe so far this season.
What's the odds on 0-0 tomorrow then?
Yeah, well, probably, yeah. Gary says, if Villa is having a poor day, what should I look for? I need a light at the end of the tunnel. Well, I think we maybe sort of covered that, really. Then, they're not creating a lot of chances, but I do feel that you are quite dangerous from set pieces, aren't you? So we maybe need to watch out for that, not concede any stupid free kicks in and around the box, and try not to concede too many corners and stuff like that, because we haven't been great defending set pieces this season so far.
But again, sleep easy at night with corners. When we have a corner, we all sit down. There's no point staying stand up here. Let's just save everyone a bit of time. Let's just kick the ball out directly behind, and let's just go back into our positions. We're better off with throw-ins because Cash has got a really long throw. You can get it into the 6-yard box from both sides. From corners, it drives me mad, and I know how it happens or why it happens. But the amount of times that we hit the first man at the near post drives me crackers. I don't understand it. Get it in the box for someone to attack and try and win the first contact, and then possibly the second ball. But God, we just can't beat the first man. Doesn't matter who.
See, again, that sounds like Arsenal as well. We have exactly the same problems. Most of our corners are terrible, and we never seem to score many from them. But anyway, so there probably won't be many goals from corners. And I mean, Matty Cash, you mentioned him now. I remember him playing against us in the FA Cup for Nottingham Forest a few years ago when they knocked us out, and he looked a decent player then, actually. And he's certainly come on a lot, hasn't he? He looks a really good player now, doesn't he, Matty Cash?
Yeah, he has improved massively. When we went to 3 at the back, because he's then as a wing back and he's actively encouraged to get forward, which is where he's at his best. When we played as a flat back 4, he did well, but he never really got forward that much. His job in the 4 was to defend. When we have the 3 centre backs, really, because most teams only play with 1 up front, those 3 can deal with that. And he's got a great engine. He does get up and down the field. And he's been a good signing for us. I think he was sort of 13-14 million, and he's 25-26. Won't be on silly money. Plays every game, never stops running, does all the things that a supporter wants, and is improving as well.
Yeah, no, I'll say I was really impressed when he was at Nottingham Forest that time when they knocked us out of the cup. He had a great game that day, and I wasn't surprised to see him progress in the Premier League because he always looked like he had that capability to do that, and he's pushed on really well. So that's good to see as well. Obviously, we can't end without a prediction. I know it's you've already said it could go either way. It could be any of the 3 results. So I kind of tend to agree. Benjamin in the chat there says he fancies another draw tomorrow, 2-2. That wouldn't surprise me. Nothing much would surprise me, if I'm honest. What are you thinking? Are you confident? I mean, you have got a decent.
It won't be 0-0. It can't be 0-0. This game cannot be 0-0. I cannot see how this game can be 0-0.
No, probably not.
Given our away form, which isn't great, my heart says we'll sneak a 2-1. I think my head says we'll probably lose 2-1. Because we're not great away from home, which is silly, really, because I've never really understood massively the difference. It's the same ball, same size goals, pretty much the same pitch. You're on grass. It's the same rules. Yeah. Why is it so massively different? I mean, we're not playing in Turkey where they're threatening to kill you and you'd be worried about getting out of the place alive. I don't think that happens at the Emirates. We're not going to Millwall or something like that, are we? Arsenal seems to be quite a cultured place. You don't seem to worry about stuff like that, but. It could really go. It really could go either way.
No, I tend to agree. I think the key's going to be in midfield. I think whoever maybe wins a midfield battle will probably edge the game, possibly. Gary in the chat there is going for 1-1. I think most people seem to be thinking it's going to be quite tight. And I kind of tend to agree. I think it will be. Shane there says, I can't believe. Hang on, where's that comment gone? I can't believe we're hoping that Villa have an off day, so we have a chance of winning. I don't think it's necessarily a matter of us hoping Villa have an off day. I think we can maybe play well, but it really hurts where the club is at the moment.
We are the Arsenal. No disrespect to Villa, we are the Arsenal.
Yeah.
How many European Cups you won, mate?
Well, yeah, exactly. We won. I was going to actually. I did want to mention that because it's obviously 40 years ago this season, isn't it? That you won a European Cup. So
yeah, I mean, we get rinsed for mentioning it, but it's you got to be proud of
course
of doing that. You've got to be proud of doing that. We've got. I think there's not a great level of variance between the two sides now. I think clubs. Possibly there are, because you've been an established Premier League side for forever. We've been out of the league, which we should never have been a club of our size. But it's nothing to do with the size of the club. It's the people you've got out on the pitch.
Yeah, of course it is.
So
and the people running the club as well, and the people running the club. Let's mention as well.
Well, yeah, and unfortunately, the guy who was running our club when he first came in, and O'Neill was manager, was running it brilliantly. The only team to not have the shirt sponsorship was Acorns, the Children's Hospice. Everything was brilliant with the club. And then unfortunately he got caught literally with his pants down with the babysitter. And his wife divorced him, ended up going and living with his mother. And he was the owner of the Cleveland Browns and Aston Villa at the time. And he was told to get rid of the Cleveland Browns first, and then all money had to go through his parents or his mother, who's the learners were the people that built the MBNA bank group.
Lots
and lots and lots of money there, but he literally couldn't get any money. And once the money dries up, O'Neill walks away. You end up selling players, and that only ends up one way, doesn't it? Sadly, ends up sadly, but. Yeah, I think go back to sort of the predictions of the game again, maybe. I think if Saka doesn't play, and we can get control of the midfield, then I think we'd probably just nick it. But there's a little bit of ifs, buts, and maybes in there.
Yeah, no, there is, definitely. I mean, Tom in the chat there, he says, I'm hoping we nick a 2-1. We need to win. That's the main thing. No, you're right. We do need a win, and let's hope we do. Gary says, I'm not hoping for Villa to have a poor day. I'm hoping Arsenal to play very well. And I think to win the game, Arsenal will have to play very well, because Aston Villa, as we've said, are a good team. They're not, they're not no pushover, certainly not. Nigel says 2-1 to Villa. He's actually thinks you guys might win. He said Arteta is skating on thin ice, in my opinion. He is. He needs a performance tomorrow. And Nigel says their league titles trump European Cups, Froggy. although maybe we've won 13 league titles. I think I'd maybe trade 1 or 2 for 1 European Cup, if I'm honest. But anyway. Maybe one day we might get one. But I mean, I'll always remember that the Villa European Cup final, because of course it was Jimmy Rimmer, wasn't it, who got injured very early in that game. And Nigel Spink came on and was a hero, wasn't he? Made some great saves that night.
It was incredible, because I remember watching that as a 12-year-old lad, and everyone was the year before when we won the league. We only had 14 players that played the game.
Yeah,
some of them only played a few, and Rimmer was just unbelievable. It was just, when we conceded a goal, it was almost, well, that can't be right. Rimmer doesn't let any goals in. What's gone on there? Of course, when he goes off, and you think, who's this goalkeeper coming on? I know he's played one game on Boxing Day when Rimmer was ill or something like that. We just thought, well, that's it. And that was just our night. I mean, if we'd have played that game 10 times, Bayern would have beat us 9. And you've just got to have a bit of luck. I remember vividly watching the game against Barcelona in the European Cup final, watching that game with a group of Arsenal fans. The job I was doing, we had a load of Londoners with us, and thought, you're going to win this here. So it was Campbell scored, wasn't it? And then was it Lehmann got sent off? Yeah,
well, Lehmann got sent off first, and then Campbell scored.
That's right.
And then we had a couple of chances on the counter attack to get the second goal and wrap it up. Henry missed one. I think Lundberg missed one, and it just, like you said, that was Villa's night that night. And unfortunately, that night for us, it just wasn't meant to be our night, was it?
Just wasn't your night. And I think that side really was probably your best chance of winning it. And it's always strange, really, that it never really happened when you look at the team that you had, and you think, well, it was set up with the guys in the middle of the park. They were just beasts, wasn't they? I always used to remember whenever we used to play against Arsenal, you'd come out and you think, Christ almighty, I mean, I played football at a fairly decent level, nowhere near that type of level, but you imagine being stood in the corridor to come out. It was just a staircase then at Villa Park. Yeah. You'd look at Arsenal and you'd be like, Christ, they're all 6'3", 6'4". They're massive. And it's actually a little bit of a mystery, isn't it? You think, well, they've got good keeper, solid defence, creative midfield players, world-class striker. How did they just never quite get over the line in the European Cup?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest frustrations, I think, that that we've got as Arsenal fans in that particular era. You know, we went invincible, unbeaten in the Premier League, and we never quite managed to get a European Champions League. You know, that one final, and we never really got close again. And that is a frustration. I'm not quite sure how that didn't happen. Really, it just, you know, a couple of years before that final, we played Chelsea in the quarter final. We got a 1-1 draw away. We played them at home, good chance to go through. We would have had, I think it was Porto and Monaco were left in it. We would have been an easier route to win it. And Chelsea come back and we were 1-0 up at half time at Highbury. Looked like we were going into the semi-final, and then we conceded 2 goals in the second half and lost. Frank Lampard actually scored one of them. So that was a frustration as well. We had a chance that year, didn't quite make it. And obviously the final that year against Barcelona, and maybe Arsenal are just destined never to win that trophy, unfortunately. We've not got a good record in Europe anyway. We've only ever won 2 European trophies, which is quite poor for a club of Arsenal's size with the trophies that we've won and the teams that we've had. We should have won more European trophies than we have. And that's a big frustration. And unfortunately, at the minute, we've got no chance of winning one because we're not even in it. So,
you don't want to be.
It is a frustration.
Other than if you go in that Europa League, I think if you're going to go in, you've either just got to use it to blood your second team or your reserve players or stuff like that, or you've got to go in all in to try and win it because it gets you into the Champions League then. But if you get into the Champions League, can you win it? So, what impact does that have on your league?
I agree. I mean, I quite enjoyed the Europa League for the sense that I knew we had a chance of winning it. And we did pretty well in it. We got to a final, a semi-final. So, you know, we had 2 semi-finals, I think we might have got to. But we did pretty well in the competition. But unfortunately, we've not managed to win that either. So, and now we're not in Europe at all. But yeah, I don't know. It is something Arsenal need to put right at some stage, definitely, because that's a blot on our history, isn't it? And every single club who's won the European Cup mentions it to us, you know, and fair enough, we have to take that. You know, Chelsea have won 2 now, which is even more frustrating. You know, Nottingham Forest have won 2. I mean, Nottingham Forest, a little club like that, have won 2 European Cups.
Yeah,
so annoying.
We used to love teasing a lot of the clubs when they used to come down and batter us when we wasn't particularly great. And you know, Arsenal were one of them. And I wouldn't say they fall into the category of some of the clubs where it goes from teasing to a little bit over the top from that. So people like Chelsea, particularly, thinking, well, hang on a minute, lads. 5 or 10 years ago, you were getting 16,000 in a crappy ground. You had no players. You were broke. And now all of a sudden, where have all these 40,000 people come from all of a sudden? And you're singing about how great you are. You know, come back and talk to us when you've won this. And of course, once they won that, we thought, oh God, we haven't really got a great deal to go back with.
No, exactly. Yeah.
But we have with Man City. It was the only time I think I can ever remember me wanting Chelsea to win a game of football was when they played Man City in that final last year. Because, I mean, I can. They're already sort of plastic, but Man City are now. I mean, it's just you watch their Premier League games and their Champions League games, and their stadium. They can't fill the stadium up.
No. I mean, I must admit, as an Arsenal fan, it hurt me to say it, but I kind of wanted Chelsea to win that game because my reasoning being they'd already won the Champions League, Man City never had, and it would have been another team winning it before us. So I was quite glad that Chelsea won just on that basis, really, but no particular reason other than that. And yeah, it's a shame that we're having to feel like that because Arsenal should have at least one of them in the cabinet, like we've got everything else. And unfortunately, at the moment, we're a million miles away from even being in the Champions League, let alone competing to win it. I mean, we're miles behind those teams, aren't we, at the minute? And it is a shame, but unfortunately, it's the way it is. And Bargav's in the chat there. He says, "Who do you think has a better team, Villa or Palace?" Well, I think Villa are they've been together. I know they've got a few new players, but the structure of the team, you've been together, got the same manager for a few years, a lot of the same players. I think experience-wise, Villa are probably a better team than Palace, but Palace, a new manager, a lot of new players. They're building again. They could potentially become better than Villa, but I think at the moment, I think Villa are better, and I think we'll see that tomorrow night because we've just come back off the Crystal Palace game, and I'm sure Villa will are even better than Palace. So it's going to be a tough game. I mean, obviously, you'll say that Villa have got a better team than Palace, won't you? I'm sure.
If we finish below Palace, I'll be disappointed. If we finish below Arsenal, I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I wouldn't.
I think Palace have got some good players, but I would try and just being logical, looking at it. If you as an outsider, how many are you putting a side together at Villa and Palace? You know, I think there'd be a higher percentage of Villa players in there than Palace. I mean, I would take Zaha. Nobody else immediately springs to mind of players that are fit and available to play for them at the moment that I think I would take, and he would. I think he would improve us, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not a good side and Vieira won't do a good job. But now, if we finish below Palace, I'd be disappointed with that.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I obviously would as well. But you know, I think they're an up and coming team, and I think they're going to improve, and I think they may have a few good years ahead of them actually if they keep Vieira and add to the squad that they've got. Yeah. And I think they can go from strength to strength. Nigel says there we were the best team in the world between 2001 and 2005. Well, we certainly were up there amongst the best teams ever to play football during that period, wasn't we? I believe. And Tom says
I had a six-pack in 2001.
Well, yeah. Tom says there that the joyous pearls have been a gooner. There's always next year, I tell people, but I've been saying that for a while now. Yeah, we've all been saying that for a while. Next year, and unfortunately, it's getting a bit repetitive at the minute, isn't it? Because it always seems to be next year, and it never is at the minute. But anyway, I'm sure one day it will. Nigel says there PSG, City, or maybe Newcastle will supply the traditional European establishment. Yeah, maybe they sort of started to have a little bit. The former two clubs are already playing in semi-finals or finals regularly. Yeah, exactly. And you know, it doesn't mean anything though, does it? When you throw enough money at it, you're going to have success, aren't you? Really, I suppose. But anyway, it is what it is, and that's football.
I think Newcastle would. I think it'll take Newcastle a lot longer than people think,
it will,
because
it will.
They can't get anyone until January, and when that time comes around, they might be 6 or 7 points adrift of fourth place in the bottom three, and they'll only then get players that are willing to go there. They're going to get paid extortionate amounts of money, and they'll want relegation clauses in their contracts and things such that. And you think, well, are those the type of people you want in your team and your club? But you know, who would leave their club to go to Newcastle that would improve them? Really?
Money talks, I suppose. Money talks, but I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, I agree. I think the problem that Newcastle have got is now there's so much money at the top end of the league that the fact they've got all that money doesn't really make a lot of difference because everybody else has as well. Every club's got rich owners, and you know the big clubs are spending money. And if it takes Newcastle 4 years, in 4 years' time, Man City would have spent billions on improving their team. Chelsea would have done. Man United would have done. Liverpool would have done. So Newcastle will have to spend 4, 5, 6, 7 times that much just to keep up with them. And
well, absolutely.
One, you've got financial fair play as well, which is going to maybe kick in again, and that's going to hold them back. And I don't know. I mean, it's good for the club that they've got they had, and that's great. But how quickly or how this process is going to work, who knows? I mean, a Newcastle friend of mine has said to me that he thinks Newcastle win the Premier League before Arsenal next do, but there's no guarantee that's going to happen because
there's a lot. Well, that could all look very, very different come the end of the season.
Well, it could have just been relegated. It certainly would be.
But you know, if Newcastle, for example, came in and wanted to buy John McGinn, you know that money's no object for them. So McGinn's got 3.5 or 3 3/4 years contracts left. We don't have to sell him. Our owners are very, very, very rich as well, but nowhere near as wealthy as those guys. Okay, fine. Yeah, you can have him. £100 million. £100 million, and then McGinn's agent will then say, "Oh, right, happy days, here we go. We want £190,000 a week." And, you've got all those players that, even when it comes around to it, if it's not quite working out, they've got to move these players on. They're on 5-year contracts, 190 grand a week. They ain't going anywhere. You can't get rid of players. They won't be able to get rid of them. And anybody that they want to buy is going to cost them ridiculous amounts of money. And I can't see how financial fair play is going to enable a club like Newcastle to do this quickly, because my understanding of financial fair play is that it's based around your last 3 years' accounts. And what's their income been and profits been over the last 3 years? Not great.
Well,
so it's not as
no.
if it's not like it used to be when Abramovich came in and had all that money and you could just go and spend what he wanted. There was no restrictions on that.
No, exactly. And I think that things are different now, and it's going to be, Newcastle fans are excited, understandably so. But in reality, what difference is it actually going to make? I mean, I'm not looking at Newcastle in terms of Arsenal at the moment, because we're not in a position anyway. We're down in 8th place in the league or the last 2 seasons, and we hit round about that again now. So it's not really going to affect us. It's going to affect teams just on the brink. It seems like Leicester are going to be more put out by Newcastle suddenly appearing up that end of the league than what we are at the moment. So I'm not particularly fussed about it, to be honest. And I know that it's not going to be an easy process for them anyway, because of how much work they need to do to even get anywhere near that kind of level. It's going to take a lot of money, a lot of time, and if it can ever happen. So we'll see how that works out, I suppose. Tom says, I saw today Dembele was being talked about as a target for Newcastle, 15 million per season wages on a free from Barca. Crazy money. Well, yeah, it is crazy money, but they've got crazy money, haven't they? So we'll see. I mean, if they get Dembele, he'd be a good signing for them, wouldn't he? So
well, he would, but again, it's got to be. He's been living in Barcelona, so he trains, and if he wants to, he can go to the beach in Barcelona and have a little bit of a lie down. It's not quite the same. I don't think some of these players actually realise what it's going to be like in January, mid-January, first week in February, on a Tuesday night in Newcastle. This is where the pull of London is so big, and I mean, even someone like you look at a club like Arsenal, and you think, if I had all that type of money that they've clearly got, wouldn't Arsenal be a better club to buy? Stadium's there in London. Doesn't have to. You wouldn't have to do that much, make that many changes. I mean, I'm sure it would cost a lot of money. Is it Kroenke that still owns Stan Kroenke that still owns your club? But he would say, well, I want to make an earning out of this, and he could still make that. For someone like Arsenal, these guys could come in and in January spend £200 million on 3 players. You then become a Champions League team.
Yeah, no, you're right. And Arsenal would be, I mean, I've heard that there's a few rich people interested in buying Arsenal, but the owners don't want to sell. And that's the other issue, isn't it? I guess, you can have as much money as you want. If you don't want to sell your club, it doesn't matter how much you get offered if you're not going to sell it. But, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think that Arsenal needs a change of direction to the direction they've been going in the last few years. And unless we get that change of direction, we can't even put ourselves in that same bracket at the moment. We can't, unfortunately. We have to accept that's where we are, and it's frustrating, and it's quite upsetting, really, where we've been, what we've seen, and to have to know that probably at the moment, looking at it, at least the next 3 or 4 years of being the same as the last couple of years. That's all we've got to look forward to, which isn't very exciting, unfortunately, for Arsenal fans. But you never know. Things change quickly in football, and they might sell up. They might decide to invest properly in the team. Who knows? We'll see. But at the moment, it is quite frustrating, and not much to feel too much excitement about as Arsenal fans at the moment, unfortunately. But
the way it looks for both of our clubs, it looks as though we might have to meet up for a few pints over the next couple of years in the 8th, 9th, and 10th saloon, because I can't see us really pushing up. And I don't see either club, with the teams that they've got, being at risk down the bottom. And it's harder and harder. And I mean, I know Brentford have had an amazing start to the season, but once sides kind of work them out a little bit and Tony gets injured or suspended, and you think, right,
Yeah.
okay, now it's a little bit different now. We now know how you play, and it's a little bit different now. I often joke to some of the mates and lads that I go to the games. It's incredible. Every single season, at least 2 of our first 3 games are always against the promoted clubs. This year we had Watford away, Brentford at home. You think, well, you want to play Watford now, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Brentford, okay, well, we've seen them play a bit, so we know what they're like, so we'll have a go. We always seem to get the promoted clubs really, really early on. But I think Brentford will be safe. I think Norwich are absolute cast iron certainties to go
down. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's 2 slots this year. I do think Newcastle have got a genuine chance of going down. I really do, because they might make a couple of signings in January, but how many signings they need to improve that team that they've got there?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. No, that is a problem for Newcastle. I do think that the January is a big January window for them, actually. Who they get in, what manager they get in as well, is going to be crucial to how the season pans out for them, actually. And, it's a big season for Newcastle, because if they did go down, then, wow, that would be, that would certainly wipe the smiles off a few faces in the northeast, I think, wouldn't it, if that was to happen? But we'll see. I mean, I personally don't think they will go down anyway, even if they didn't buy anyone in January. I still think that there's worse teams than them in the league, and maybe with a different manager coming in might give them a bounce anyway. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, it's the league's changed a lot over recent years, and unfortunately, it's gone the wrong direction for us. But we'll survive, and we'll crack on, and hopefully we'll be back at some point, because history shows that that's what Arsenal have done. So I'm confident eventually it will turn around, and let's hope it does quite quickly, because it has been a frustrating time. But we'll see what happens tomorrow. I mean, take one game at a time. That's what I'm trying to do at the moment. Obviously, Monday was disappointing. You guys had a real disappointment at the weekend as well. So both teams will be looking to bounce back tomorrow with a positive performance and a positive result. So I think it's going to be a good game, actually. Two good teams with some good players. It should be an entertaining game, and hopefully we can turn around our recent poor run against it, because I say we haven't scored for the last 3. So that's going to turn around hopefully tomorrow, but we'll see. I agree. I don't think it's going to be 0-0. I think, give my prediction, I think it's going to be a tight game, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was a draw. And I think my head's saying draw, it's screaming at me draw, but I'm going to have to go with Arsenal to win, aren't I suppose. So I'll maybe say we'll nick it 2-1, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if it was another 2-2 like the other night, actually, because I do think there'll be goals in this game. And yeah, I think it could end up 2-2, but I'll go 2-1 Arsenal, just because, well, I suppose I should really. Tom says, they won't sell. It's a business to them, and no one can make them sell. That's true. Not sure when Stan even visited the Emirates to watch a match. He's like a silent partner in a way you never hear or see him. Yeah, I mean, his son Josh tends to be around a little bit more than he is, but yeah, they're not the owners really that's going to take the club forward, unfortunately, as we've seen. But anyway, nothing we can do about that. We just have to hope that the players on the pitch can start playing a bit more consistently better than they've managed to so far this season, certainly. But we'll see what happens. Nigel says there, great preview chat. No, thanks a lot for watching again, Nigel. It's always a pleasure to see you in the chat. Well, Froggy, thank you very much for coming on. Absolute pleasure to chat to you. We could go on all night, but unfortunately it's nearly bedtime, so we'll have to. But I mean, enjoy the game tomorrow. I mean, you haven't got a channel of your own, have you? You just sort of appear on other channels. Is that what?
No, I'm a bit technically challenged when it comes around to this. I leave all that sort of stuff down to my son. But I do also the social media stuff, but it's a little bit of fun for me. I wouldn't have the time or knowledge to do something like this, but these sort of things I do like. I mean, I know your club is associated with one particular channel, particularly that I do like to watch, but I only like to watch it when things go wrong for Arsenal, because I think some of the reactions on there are just hilarious. But now this has been really good fun, and I've really enjoyed it. So thank you for inviting me, and I'll be more than happy to do it again. Or if you wanted to do it for the return fixture, then absolutely more than happy to have a discussion with you.
No, definitely, yeah, no, that'd be a good idea. Gary says, great preview, Richard and Froggatt. No, thanks for Gary for watching as well. And I say anyone watching, check out that DWTT's channel as well. That's some good stuff there as well. And the Arsenal fan circle he's on as well. So I mean, yeah, you mentioned obviously Arsenal AFTV. There are actually a lot of Arsenal channels out there on YouTube actually, and you know, obviously most of them aren't as big as AFTV, and you know, but there's a lot of good stuff out there, a lot of good content. You know, not only for Arsenal, for other clubs as well. You know, I watch a lot of. In fact, I probably watch more YouTube channels now than I watch sort of TV or anything else at the minute. You know, lots of different clubs have got some great content, so there's always some good stuff to watch. Tom says, "Good show, guys. Doors open at 6:30 tomorrow. Just got the email through. Yeah, hopefully there won't be so many queues as there was the other night, which was a bit of a nightmare." And Shane says, "Great stream, thanks, lads." Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks for watching, Shane, a fan of the channel. But yeah, so thanks, Froggy, for coming on. Absolute pleasure. I say enjoy the game tomorrow. Just obviously not too much, hopefully, you know, because you don't want to get too excited or anything like that. So, but no, I mean, I'm sure it'll be a good game. Enjoy that, and yeah, thanks for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It could be worse. You could be a Tottenham or a Birmingham City fan. It could be always somebody worse off than you.
No, there is. That's a good way to finish the show on a nice positive note. And I agree with what you said at the beginning. Actually, you know, Aston Villa are the biggest club in the Midlands, so you know, and we're the biggest club in London. So it's
well, I hope my good mate Steve Reddy, who's a massive Spurs fan, has had the chance to watch it. He'll kill me for saying that, but yeah, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Arsenal, and just hope that he doesn't sort of run tomorrow and we get the result and you have a really good season after that, but not tomorrow.
Exactly, that's always the case, isn't it? Same with you guys. You know, I mean, Aston Villa, one of the historically massive clubs in English football, and I say Villa Park's a great place to watch football, and I will hopefully be going there later in the season. Shane says, "Yeah, sound bloke, Froggy, best of luck in your season." No, exactly, yeah, and obviously after tomorrow, of course, don't forget that though, Shane. After tomorrow, we wish him luck. Tomorrow, obviously.
Well, listen, if you come down to the return fixture, drop me a line before. We'll meet up and have a beer before the game.
That sounds perfect. Definitely will do that. That sounds good. It does depend on what day of the week they move it to, because TV has messed up my week already, actually, with moving the games to Monday and Friday hasn't helped. But anyway, hopefully it'll be on a weekend, which makes it a little bit easier, but we'll see.
Neither of us have to worry about European games, do we? So I don't think it'll be a Sunday.
No, probably not. Well, I don't know. Sometimes we probably on a Monday night now, won't it? That'll be the problem. That's what they'll do. They'll probably stick it on a Monday night or something stupid. But anyway,
yeah, just drop me a line if you want to meet up for a beer before the game. That'd be fine. No bother.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I will do. No problem at all. I'll say thanks a lot for coming on, and I'll say enjoy the game tomorrow. We'll speak again soon. And everyone watching, thanks for watching the show. Hope you've enjoyed it, and please subscribe if you've enjoyed the channel and give it a like as well. And I will see you tomorrow night for the game at about 7:45, and that will be good. And hopefully it'll be a good game to watch, and we can enjoy some good football. And may the best team win, as long as
Absolutely.
Cheers. Enjoy. Thanks a lot, mate.
See you later. Have a good evening.
Thanks, guys. Come on, you Gunners. Come on.